I funded a $28K family trip to Dubai for my dad's retirement. We gave your seat to your sister's Fi. My name is Lauren, 34 years old, and my dad has always been my rock. After 2 years of saving every penny from my software engineering job, I finally had enough. $28,000 for the ultimate retirement gift, a luxury family trip to Dubai. Dad always dreamed of seeing those impossibly tall buildings and experiencing that level of luxury just once in his life. I was so excited until I got that text from my sister. Something about last-minute changes that made my stomach drop. If you are watching this video right now, could you drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from? And if this story resonates with you so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our storytelling family. Trust me, you will want to hear how this unfolds. Growing up, my dad, Frank Williams, was everything to me. When Mom died from cancer when I was 12, he became both parents working tirelessly to keep our little family afloat. I still remember how he would come home exhausted from his job as a mechanical engineer, yet still find energy to help with my science projects or just listen to my day. He never complained, not once, about the weight he carried. Dad always talked about traveling the world someday. He had this travel magazine subscription, and I would catch him flipping through pages about exotic destinations, his eyes lighting up at photos of Dubai, Singapore, and Tokyo. But whenever vacation planning came up, money always went to more practical things: college funds, home repairs, or helping my sister Melissa through another financial rough patch. Melissa and I could not be more different. 4 years older than me at 38, she has always been the one who wanted more. More attention, more possessions, more status. While I pursued computer science because I genuinely loved solving problems, Melissa went into finance because, in her words, that is where the money is. She drives a car she cannot afford and lives in an apartment that stretches her budget to breaking point. But her Instagram tells a different story, one of success and luxury. Our relationship grew strained after Mom died. I gravitated toward Dad, finding comfort in his steadiness, while Melissa became more distant, almost resentful of our closeness. She moved out at 18 and rarely came home except when she needed something. Over the years, our conversations became surface-level holiday pleasantries exchanged over mandatory family dinners. I built my career step by step, moving to Seattle for a junior software engineering position at a mid-sized tech company. 5 years and 3 promotions later, I now lead a development team, earning more than I ever expected. Unlike Melissa, I lived below my means. My apartment is modest, my car reliable but not flashy, and I never carried credit card debt. Friends teased me about being frugal, not realizing I was saving with a purpose. When Dad called last spring to announce his retirement, after 40 years of dedicated work, I felt this was the moment to give back. During one of our weekly video calls, he mentioned Dubai again, talking about a documentary he had watched about the Burj Khalifa. "Can you imagine being up that high, Laure?" he asked, eyes wide with wonder. "They have restaurants where you can see the whole city, and it looks like something from the future." That night, I made a decision. I would take Dad to Dubai, not just for a quick trip, but for the full experience. And I would include Melissa too, hoping this might be a chance to rebuild our fractured family. Little did I know how that decision would unfold. Planning a dream vacation to Dubai required more research than any software project I had tackled. I spent nights after work learning everything about the city, the best time to visit must-see attractions, cultural norms, and hidden gems that tourists often missed. I created spreadsheets comparing hotels, restaurants, and tour packages, determined to craft the perfect experience. The Atlantis on Palm Jumeirah kept appearing in my research as the epitome of Dubai luxury. When I saw pictures of its underwater suites, aquarium views, and private beaches, I knew Dad would be amazed. The price made me wince, but this was not the time for compromise. I connected with Sarah, a travel agent specializing in Middle Eastern destinations. Her expertise proved invaluable as she helped navigate the complexities of planning such an elaborate trip. "If your dad loves architecture, we need to book the Burj Khalifa experience in advance," Sarah advised. "And the desert safari should be private rather than shared if you want that magical experience under the stars." Sarah helped me build an 8-day itinerary that balanced iconic attractions with authentic cultural experiences. We scheduled visits to the Dubai Mall, a day trip to Abu Dhabi, to see the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, a traditional dhow cruise with dinner, and that special desert safari with a Bedouin-style feast under the stars. Each activity was chosen with Dad in mind, things I knew would make his eyes light up. Meanwhile, I transformed my financial life to save the necessary funds. I created a separate savings account named Dad's Dream and set up automatic transfers from every paycheck. I took on freelance coding projects on weekends, adding those earnings directly to the fund. Small sacrifices accumulated. I canceled streaming subscriptions, cooked all meals at home, and extended the life of my wardrobe rather than buying new clothes. My colleagues invited me out for happy hours and weekend trips, not understanding why I consistently declined. Only my closest friend Rachel knew what I was planning. "You are giving up 2 years of your social life for this," she asked one night over homemade pasta at my apartment. "It is worth it," I replied without hesitation. Dad gave up 20 years of his life to raise us alone. 2 years of budget living is nothing in comparison. Tracking my progress through a savings app became a daily ritual. Watching that number grow from hundreds to thousands gave me a sense of purpose. The day I reached $28,000, I actually cried. That amount would cover flights, accommodation, meals, activities, and spending money for 3 people to experience Dubai in style. The package I ultimately booked included 8 nights in a 2-bedroom suite at the Atlantis for Dad, a connecting 1-bedroom suite for me, and another for Melissa and her fiancé. First-class flights for Dad, business class for the rest of us. VIP passes to major attractions to skip the lines, a chartered yacht excursion, and that special desert experience with a private guide. Every detail was planned to make this the trip of a lifetime. Calling Melissa to extend the invitation was more stressful than any job interview. We had not spoken properly in months, just exchanged brief texts on birthdays and holidays. I rehearsed what to say, wanting to sound generous without seeming like I was showing off. A family trip to Dubai. For Dad's retirement. Melissa sounded suspicious when I finally called. "That sounds expensive. How are you affording that?" I explained I had been saving for 2 years, downplaying the total cost. Her initial disinterest shifted dramatically when I mentioned the Atlantis and first-class flights. "Well, that sounds amazing." Her tone warmed considerably. "Actually, I have been seeing someone serious. His name is Jason. He works in real estate development. Would there be room for him too?" I had budgeted for 3 people, not 4, but refused to create conflict before the trip even began. "Of course," I said, recalculating costs in my head. "I would love to meet him." "Jason has some business contacts in Dubai," Melissa continued, suddenly enthusiastic. "This could be a great opportunity for networking." That comment gave me pause. This trip was meant to be a family celebration, not a business opportunity. But I pushed aside my concerns, focusing instead on the vision of Dad's face when he learned about the surprise. I planned the big reveal for a Sunday dinner at Dad's house 3 months before the scheduled trip. I decorated his dining room with subtle Arabian touches, twinkling string lights resembling stars, blue and gold accents on the table, and Middle Eastern music playing softly in the background. I prepared lamb kebabs, hummus, and tabbouleh from recipes I found online, wanting to give him a taste of the adventure to come. Dad noticed the decor immediately when he walked in. "What is all this? Did you redecorate my house while I was at bowling?" He laughed, looking around in confusion. "Just wanted to make dinner special," I replied casually, hiding my excitement. Melissa and Jason arrived 30 minutes late. This was my first time meeting Jason, a tall, polished man with an expensive watch and a practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. He shook my hand firmly, immediately launching into questions about my job and connections in the tech industry. During dinner, Dad shared stories about his colleagues and his mixed feelings about retirement. "Going to miss the people, but not the early mornings," he chuckled. "Thinking about maybe getting more into woodworking, finally finishing that canoe in the garage." When dessert was served, I placed a gold envelope beside Dad's plate. "A little early retirement present," I said, my voice shaking slightly. Dad looked puzzled as he opened it, pulling out the detailed itinerary, first-class boarding passes, and Atlantis reservation confirmations. He stared at the papers, confusion turning to disbelief. "Dubai," he whispered, looking up at me. "The Atlantis, Lauren. What is this? We are going to Dubai," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "All of us. You, me, Melissa, and Jason. For 8 days. First class, 5-star, everything. Your retirement adventure." Dad's hands trembled as he examined the documents. "But this must have cost a fortune," he said, voice breaking. "Do not worry about that," I assured him. "I have been saving for 2 years. Everything is paid for." Dad stood up and pulled me into the tightest hug, his tears dampening my shoulder. "No one has ever done anything like this for me," he whispered. Across the table, Melissa examined the itinerary with newfound interest, whispering to Jason and pointing at specific activities. "Is this the famous underwater restaurant?" she asked. "And these desert safari things, are they private or group tours?" "All private," I confirmed. I wanted everything to be special. "Smart," Jason nodded approvingly. "Those group tours can be so tedious. And the hotel, excellent choice. I actually know someone on their executive team." Throughout the evening, Dad kept returning to the itinerary, examining every detail with childlike excitement. "The Burj Khalifa, Lauren, did you know it is the tallest building in the world?" he exclaimed, as if I had not researched every fact about Dubai for months. While helping clean up, I overheard Jason in the living room already on the phone, discussing potential business meetings in Dubai. "Yes, I will be there in 3 months," he said quietly. "Family trip, but I can certainly make time for dinner." That night, as I drove home, my initial elation was tinged with unease. Dad's reaction had been everything I hoped for, but Melissa and Jason seemed to view the trip through a different lens. Still, I reminded myself this was for Dad. Everything else was secondary. The following weeks were filled with preparations. I helped Dad shop for appropriate clothing considering Dubai's climate and cultural norms. We applied for passports as Dad had never traveled internationally before and arranged for travel insurance. I created a shared document with packing lists and travel tips. Meanwhile, Melissa began sending daily texts with requests and questions. Could we add a day trip to Abu Dhabi? Was spa access included? Would there be a concierge to arrange additional activities? Each message subtly pushed for more, as if the extravagant trip I had planned was somehow insufficient. I accommodated where I could, wanting to maintain harmony. When Melissa requested dinner at a specific celebrity chef restaurant not included in my original budget, I quietly made the reservation and paid the substantial deposit, not mentioning that it meant canceling the shopping budget I had set aside for myself. "This trip needs to be perfect for Dad," I told Rachel during one of our coffee dates. "If that means dealing with Melissa's demands, so be it." "Just be careful," Rachel warned. "It sounds like she and Jason might have their own agenda." I dismissed her concern at the time. Nothing could possibly overshadow the joy of fulfilling Dad's dream. I was about to learn how wrong I was. The morning of our departure arrived with perfect June weather. I drove to Dad's house at 5 a.m., finding him already waiting on the porch, suitcase beside him, passport clutched firmly in hand. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted with a boyish grin. "Too excited." The airport was crowded with summer travelers. We checked in at the business and first-class counter, where the attendant treated Dad with special deference, making him blush with pleasure. "Mr. Williams, we will be delighted to have you aboard in first class today," she said, handing him his boarding pass with a warm smile. Melissa and Jason arrived just as we were preparing to go through security, offering no apology for their tardiness. Melissa wore oversized sunglasses and a travel outfit that looked straight from a magazine, while Jason was engrossed in his phone, barely acknowledging our greetings. Once through security, we settled in the business lounge, where Dad marveled at the complimentary food and comfortable seating. "They just let you take whatever you want," he whispered to me, gesturing toward the buffet. "Anything you like, Dad." I laughed. That is what first class is all about. Boarding the plane, Dad was escorted to his first-class pod with its lie-flat bed, personal entertainment system, and dedicated flight attendant. The look of wonder on his face made every penny spent worthwhile. I settled into my business-class seat, comfortable but not as luxurious. Shortly after takeoff, Melissa appeared beside my seat. "Jason and I were wondering if you would mind switching with him," she asked. "Since we are engaged, it would be nice to sit together, and you could take his seat near Dad in first class." The request seemed reasonable enough, though I had been looking forward to business-class comfort after 2 years of frugality. "Sure," I agreed, gathering my things. Only when I reached Jason's assigned seat did I realize the switch was not as described. His seat was not next to Dad in first class, but in business class several rows back from where I had been. Melissa had moved herself to first class, leaving Jason and me separated in business. I considered confronting them, but decided against creating a scene. This trip was about Dad's happiness, not airline seating arrangements. So I settled into my new seat, silently noting the pattern beginning to emerge. Landing in Dubai was a spectacle in itself. The city glittered in the desert heat, a monument to human ambition and engineering. Dad pressed his face against the window, like a child pointing out skyscrapers and man-made islands as we descended. "It does not look real," he kept saying, "like something from a science fiction movie." A private car transferred us to the Atlantis, driving along the Palm Jumeirah, while our driver pointed out landmarks. Dad took photos of everything, exclaiming at the ingenuity of building an entire island in the shape of a palm tree. The Atlantis lobby stunned us into silence with its grandeur, soaring ceilings, massive aquariums, and opulent decor. Dad's eyes widened, taking it all in, while Melissa and Jason assessed the surroundings with critical appreciation. "Very impressive," Jason nodded. "Though I stayed at the Burj Al Arab last time I was here. That's the 7-star hotel." I bit my tongue, knowing full well Jason had never mentioned previous travel to Dubai during our planning conversations. The check-in process revealed the room arrangements: the Royal Bridge Suite for Dad, with panoramic views, and standard suites for me and for Melissa and Jason. When Melissa saw the difference in accommodations, her smile tightened. "I thought we would all have the same room category," she said quietly as we walked to the elevators. "Dad gets the best room," I replied firmly. "It's his retirement gift." "Of course," she said quickly. "I just thought, never mind." We agreed to rest and meet for dinner at one of the resort's seafood restaurants. In my room, I checked my email to find an urgent message from Sarah, our travel agent. "Lauren, the Desert Safari Company called requiring confirmation of the updated guest count. They mentioned someone requested adding 2 additional people. Please advise ASAP, as this affects vehicle size and dining arrangements." Confused, I called the number provided. The representative explained that Ms. Melissa Williams had contacted them directly to add 2 guests to our exclusive desert experience, providing my booking details. My hands trembled as I ended the call. Melissa had not only taken it upon herself to alter arrangements I had meticulously planned, but had done so without discussing it with me or offering to cover the substantial additional cost. I confronted her before dinner, catching her alone in the hallway. "Did you add 2 people to our desert safari?" I asked directly. Melissa looked momentarily surprised before recovering her composure. "Oh, that. Yes, I hope you do not mind. Jason met some important contacts at the hotel, and it would be really valuable for him to spend more time with them. It is just 2 more people." "That just is an extra $1,500, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "And more importantly, that was supposed to be our private family experience." Melissa rolled her eyes. "Come on, Lauren. It is not like Dad will care. He will be happy just being there, and this could be really important for Jason's business. You know how these networking opportunities work." "No, actually I don't," I replied, "because this trip was never about networking. It was about Dad." "Well, we are all here, so it can be about multiple things," she said dismissively. "Anyway, it is already arranged. Would you really make me call and cancel? How would that look?" I retreated, unwilling to escalate the conflict. But that night, I lay awake in my luxurious bed, wondering how I had failed to anticipate Melissa's behavior and worried about what else might change without my knowledge or consent. Our first full day in Dubai began with breakfast overlooking the Arabian Gulf, followed by our scheduled visit to the Burj Khalifa. Dad wore his new lightweight button-down shirt and khaki pants, camera ready around his neck. "I read that it has 163 floors, he told me excitedly as our private guide led us to the express elevator, "and the observation deck is on the 148th floor. The ascent was swift and smooth, opening to a panoramic view that literally took Dad's breath away. He stood speechless, gazing across the sprawling city, the desert beyond, and the blue waters of the Persian Gulf. "It is like seeing the whole world at once," he finally whispered. I stood beside him, my hand on his shoulder, savoring his joy more than the view itself. Melissa and Jason were noticeably distant, taking selfies by themselves and speaking with another couple, rather than joining us at the viewing windows. When our guide offered to take a family photo, Jason waved him off, saying they were in the middle of something important. Lunch was scheduled at Atmosphere, the world's highest restaurant, where I had reserved a window table months in advance. The meal was exquisite, but halfway through, Jason excused himself to take a call, returning 20 minutes later to announce he had arranged a meeting with a potential investor that evening. "We will have to miss the Dow cruise," he informed us, "but this guy controls serious development funds. Couldn't say no." "The cruise is for the whole family," I reminded him. "It is on the itinerary." "You and Frank go ahead," Melissa interjected. "We will catch up with you tomorrow." Dad, ever the peacemaker, nodded agreeably. "Do what you need to do. We will have plenty of time together." Later that afternoon, while Dad rested in his suite, my phone rang with a call from the local airline handling our Abu Dhabi day trip. There was a problem with our reservation. Someone had requested changes to the departure time, but the new time was unavailable. After 15 frustrating minutes sorting out the confusion, I learned that Melissa had contacted them directly to adjust the schedule, moving our carefully planned day trip 3 hours earlier to accommodate an afternoon spa appointment she wanted to book. I found her by the hotel pool, sipping a cocktail while scrolling through her phone. "You changed our Abu Dhabi plans without telling me," I asked, not bothering to hide my frustration. She looked up, squinting against the sun. "The original departure was too late. We would have wasted half the day." "The timing was intentional," I explained, "to avoid the worst midday heat and crowds. Now we will be standing outside the Sheikh Zayed Mosque at noon in 110-degree weather." "Well, we can bring hats," she shrugged. "Anyway, it didn't work out right. So what is the problem?" "The problem is that you keep changing things without discussing it with anyone. I spent months planning this itinerary." "And it is a lovely itinerary," she said patronizingly. "But sometimes plans need to be flexible. We are all adults here." I took a deep breath. "This trip is for Dad. I paid for everything. If you want to make changes, at least talk to me first." Melissa's expression hardened. "Just because you paid does not mean you control everything we do. And just so you know, Jason and I could have easily afforded this trip ourselves. We chose to let you treat us because it seemed important to you." The conversation left me seething, but I plastered on a smile when Dad emerged from his nap, eager to explore the hotel's famous aquarium. His childlike wonder as we walked through the underwater tunnels, surrounded by thousands of marine creatures, temporarily distracted me from my frustrations. "Look at the size of that stingray," he exclaimed, pointing as the massive creature glided overhead. "Have you ever seen anything like it?" That evening, while Melissa and Jason attended their business dinner, Dad and I enjoyed the traditional dhow cruise I had booked. Sailing along Dubai Creek, watching the city lights reflect on the water, while enjoying Arabic cuisine, Dad seemed completely content. "Thank you for doing all this," he said quietly as we stood on the deck. "I know Melissa can be difficult sometimes." "You noticed?" I asked, surprised by his perception. "I have always noticed," he admitted. "Just never knew what to do about it. After your mom died, Melissa changed, became harder. I probably should have gotten her some help back then, but I was just trying to keep everything together." His honesty opened a door between us, leading to a deeper conversation than we had shared in years. By the time we returned to the hotel, I felt a renewed determination not to let Melissa's behavior diminish this special time with Dad. The next day brought our desert safari experience, which had been one of the highlights I was most looking forward to. Our guide Tariq arrived at the hotel in a luxury 4-wheel drive vehicle, only to inform us he was expecting 6 passengers, not 4. "2 more guests will join us at the desert camp," he explained. Sure enough, when we arrived at the starting point for our dune-bashing adventure, 2 strangers waited. Amanda, a colleague of Melissa's from her finance firm, and Tyler, who Jason introduced as a potential partner in his real estate ventures. What should have been an intimate family experience became a networking event. During the thrilling ride over massive sand dunes, Dad and I sat squeezed in the back while Jason dominated the conversation up front, discussing investment opportunities in Middle Eastern markets. The traditional Bedouin camp dinner that I had envisioned as a magical family moment under the stars was transformed into a business meeting. Jason and Tyler huddled together over drinks, speaking in low voices about property values and development potential, while Melissa and Amanda compared notes on luxury shopping destinations. Dad tried his best to enjoy the experience, watching the belly dancers and getting a henna tattoo on his wrist, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes when the private stargazing session I had arranged became a background activity while Jason showed property listings on his tablet to our unwanted guests. "Is it always like this with them?" Dad asked quietly as we sat slightly apart from the others, looking up at the desert sky. "Increasingly so," I admitted. "I am sorry, Dad. This is not what I planned." He patted my hand. "Not your fault, sweetheart. The important thing is we are here together. That is what matters." His graciousness only intensified my determination to salvage what remained of our trip, unaware that the worst was yet to come. By the 6th day of our trip, I had begun mentally categorizing activities into family experiences and Melissa and Jason networking opportunities, trying to maintain a balance that would allow Dad to enjoy himself despite the increasingly obvious hijacking of our vacation. That evening was meant to be the pinnacle of our Dubai adventure, a sunset dinner cruise aboard a luxury yacht timed to coincide with the famous Dubai fountain show and fireworks display. I had booked the most exclusive package with a private VIP table positioned perfectly for viewing both spectacles. I woke early that morning, excitement fluttering in my chest despite everything. Before meeting Dad for breakfast, I retrieved a small gift box from my suitcase containing a watch I had specially commissioned. It was a classic timepiece with Dad's name and retirement date engraved on the back, along with the message, "For all the time you gave us. Love, Lauren." My phone chimed with a text from Melissa. "Jason and I meeting some friends for lunch. We'll meet you directly at yacht dinner. Might be a few minutes late. Do not wait for us to order." I showed the message to Dad over breakfast. "More networking?" he asked with a knowing smile. "Apparently," I sighed. "But tonight will be special, just the four of us. I made sure of it." Dad and I spent the day exploring the historic Al Fahidi district, wandering through narrow lanes lined with restored heritage buildings, visiting museums that offered glimpses into Dubai's pre-oil past. It was refreshingly authentic after days of modern extravagance. "This reminds me of why I always wanted to travel," Dad mused as we sipped aromatic Arabic coffee in a small courtyard cafe. "To see how other people live, how they built their lives in such different circumstances." That evening, we dressed in our finest clothes, Dad looking distinguished in the new linen suit I had convinced him to buy for the occasion. We arrived at the marina precisely on time, where an attendant escorted us aboard the sleek yacht. "Mr. Williams and Ms. Williams, welcome," the host greeted us warmly. "We have your VIP table ready, the best view on the vessel." Our table was indeed perfect, positioned at the bow, with unobstructed views of the cityscape and the waters where the fountain show would take place. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, and a bottle of premium non-alcoholic sparkling juice awaited us. Dad whistled softly. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" We ordered appetizers, deciding to wait for Melissa and Jason before selecting main courses. 30 minutes passed with no sign of them. I texted Melissa, "We are here. Food is amazing. Where are you?" She replied simply, "Coming soon. Order without us." The yacht departed the marina, gliding smoothly into the waters of the Persian Gulf as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Dad and I toasted with our sparkling juice, capturing photos of the incredible skyline. Nearly an hour into our cruise, as we were finishing our appetizers, I spotted Melissa and Jason boarding the yacht, accompanied by not 2, but 4 additional people. They were laughing loudly, everyone dressed impeccably, appearing completely unconcerned about their tardiness. I waved to catch their attention, but they were escorted to a different section of the yacht. Confused, I flagged down our server. "I think my sister and her fiancé just boarded. They should be joining us at this table." The server looked uncomfortable. "Let me check with the manager." Minutes later, a formal-looking man in a dark suit approached our table. "Ms. Williams, I am Antoine, the yacht's hospitality manager. There seems to be a bit of confusion with your reservation." "What confusion?" I asked, a sense of dread building. Antoine cleared his throat. "We received a request earlier today to modify your seating arrangement. Your table assignment has been changed." "Changed by whom?" I demanded, though I already knew the answer. "A Ms. Melissa Williams called to inform us that she would be bringing important business associates and requested the VIP table. She indicated that you and Mr. Williams would be fine with relocating to an alternate table." The blood drained from my face. She had no right to make that change. I booked this cruise. I paid for everything. Antoine looked deeply uncomfortable. "She presented herself as the primary contact. She mentioned she was handling her father's retirement celebrations." "That is completely false," I said, my voice shaking. "I arranged everything. This is my father. I booked the VIP table specifically for his view of the fireworks and fountain." "I understand, and I deeply apologize for the confusion. Unfortunately, your sister and her party are already seated at the VIP table, and we have prepared an alternative table for you." "What alternative table?" I asked, dreading the answer. The alternative was a small table tucked in a corner of the lower deck with a partial view at best, far from the prime viewing area. Dad placed a gentle hand on my arm as I began to protest further. "Lauren, it is okay. The food will be just as good from any table." "No, Dad, it is not okay," I said, tears of frustration threatening to spill. "This was supposed to be your special night." I excused myself and marched to the VIP section, where I found Melissa, Jason, and 4 strangers enjoying champagne at our table, our bottle of special non-alcoholic sparkling juice nowhere to be seen. "What do you think you are doing?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice low despite my anger. Melissa looked up annoyed at the interruption. Lauren, I was going to come find you after we got settled. These are important clients of Jason's. We needed the best table. That table was for Dad, I hissed. For his retirement celebration. How could you do this? Jason interjected smoothly. Business opportunities wait for no one. I am sure Frank understands. He worked in business himself. His name is Dad to you, I snapped. And this is not about business. This whole trip was meant to be a family celebration. We are celebrating, Melissa said dismissively. Just with some additional people who could really help Jason's career. Dad will not even notice the difference in tables. You had no right to change my reservation, I insisted. I paid for everything, this entire trip. And you have mentioned that about a dozen times, Melissa retorted. Yes, we get it. You paid. Congratulations on having a good job. Does that mean you own us for the week? One of their guests, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. There is nothing to discuss, Melissa said firmly. My sister is just being dramatic. Dad is fine with the other table. You did not even ask him, I pointed out. You just decided for him like you have been deciding everything this whole trip. Look, Jason cut in his tone patronizing, we have actual business happening here. Real opportunities, not just some sentimental family vacation. Maybe you should go back to your table before you embarrass yourself further. The complete dismissal, the utter lack of remorse hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my sister searching for any sign of the person I grew up with and found nothing but a cold stranger. You know what? I said quietly. Keep the table, but know that this moment right here has changed everything between us. I turned and walked away, my legs shaky, tears now flowing freely. A server noticed my distress and kindly offered me a glass of water and tissues before I returned to Dad. Finding him sitting alone at our relegated table looking small against the backdrop of laughing, celebrating passengers broke something in me. I sat down heavily, unable to speak through my tears. Sweetheart, he said gently, it is just a table. It is not just a table, Dad, I finally managed. It is everything. This whole trip. I wanted it to be perfect for you. You deserved that perfect retirement celebration. And she just took it, like she has been taking everything. Dad surprised me then. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and extended his hand. Come with me. Where? Outside. The view might be better from the deck anyway. He led me to the outer deck, where we found a quiet spot along the railing. The evening air was warm, the city lights beginning to twinkle as darkness fell. We stood in silence for a moment, watching the water. I need to tell you something, he finally said. Something I should have told you years ago. I looked at him questioningly. I have always known exactly who Melissa is, he said quietly. Just like I have always known exactly who you are. A parent sees these things even when they don't want to. Then why did you never say anything? Why did you let her treat us this way? Because after your mother died, I was so afraid of losing anyone else that I ignored behaviors I should have addressed, he admitted. I told myself Melissa was just grieving differently, that she would grow out of it. By the time I realized the problem went deeper, the patterns were set. He turned to face me directly. But that was my failure, not yours. And I want you to know that this trip, despite everything, has been the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Not because of the fancy hotel or the expensive dinners, but because you saw what I needed and gave it to me from your heart. I reached into my purse and pulled out the gift box. I was saving this for the perfect moment, but maybe this is it. Dad opened the box carefully, his expression softening as he examined the watch. When he read the engraving, his eyes filled with tears. All the time I gave was freely given, he said, voice breaking, and I would do it again 1,000 times over. We stood together on the deck as the yacht approached the fountain show area. Ironically, our position offered a more intimate view than the VIP table would have. As the fountains began their spectacular dance synchronized to music that drifted across the water, Dad put his arm around me. Let's finish this vacation our way, he suggested. Just you and me, the way it has always been. In that moment, something shifted between us. The disappointment and anger began to transform into something else: resolution. We would not let Melissa and Jason ruin what remained of our time in Dubai. And when the fireworks exploded across the night sky, painting it with brilliant colors, I made a silent promise to myself. This would be the last time I allowed anyone, even family, to take advantage of my generosity or diminish my worth. The Dubai skyline bearing witness, I finally understood that sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to stand firm in our own value. The morning after the yacht dinner debacle, Melissa and Jason did not return to the hotel until nearly noon. They offered no apologies or explanations, acting as if nothing unusual had occurred. I noticed Dad watching them with new eyes, his customary indulgence replaced by quiet assessment. While Melissa napped off what appeared to be a significant hangover, Dad and I sat on his suite's balcony, planning the remainder of our stay. "What is on the official itinerary?" he asked, a mischievous glint in his eye. I consulted my detailed schedule. Shopping at Dubai Mall, lunch at the underwater restaurant, then the aquarium. "And what would you like to do instead?" I looked up, surprised. "Instead? Lauren, we have 3 days left in this amazing city. Let's do what we want to do, not what is on some printed schedule that Melissa will probably hijack anyway." For the first time since arriving in Dubai, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "Well, I read about these kayaking tours through the waterways of the old town, and there is a local food tour that visits places tourists never find." "Perfect," Dad declared. "Text Melissa that we are sticking to the original plan, then let us go have our own adventure." That is exactly what we did. While Melissa and Jason believed we were browsing luxury shops, Dad and I were paddling through narrow canals, seeing a side of Dubai few visitors experienced. Our guide Mahmoud shared stories of growing up in a city that transformed from a fishing village to a global metropolis within his lifetime. "My grandfather used to dive for pearls where those skyscrapers now stand," he told us, pointing toward the distant downtown. "He would never believe what his home has become." Dad was fascinated, asking questions about construction techniques, urban planning, and sustainable development in the desert environment. I realized I had rarely seen him so engaged in curious qualities that his demanding job and family responsibilities had often suppressed. The following day brought another covert change of plans. Instead of the scheduled helicopter tour, which Jason had already tried to reschedule for a meeting with property developers, we visited the spice and gold souks, wandering through aromatic stalls and watching artisans at work. Dad bought small gifts for his friends back home, carefully selecting items that represented the authentic culture rather than tourist trinkets. He seemed more relaxed than I had seen him in years, freed from the tension that Melissa's presence inevitably created. "I never realized how much energy I spent trying to keep the peace," he confessed over lunch at a tiny restaurant recommended by a local shopkeeper. "Always walking on eggshells, trying to prevent Melissa from feeling slighted or overlooked." "You should not have had to do that," I said gently. "No parent should," he agreed. "But sometimes we make mistakes out of love, even when that love is misguided." During these private excursions, Dad shared stories I had never heard before. Tales of his early marriage to Mom, dreams they had shared before cancer took her, regrets about career paths not taken. It was as if the geographical distance from home had created a space for emotional honesty neither of us had previously accessed. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he told me as we watched the sunset from a small cafe. "Not because of your success or the money you spent on this trip, but because of the person you have become. Kind, thoughtful, resilient." Meanwhile, our phones buzzed periodically with messages from Melissa, ranging from confused, "Where are you guys? We went to the mall but couldn't find you," to irritated, "Jason's contacts arranged a special dinner and you're missing it," to demanding, "We need you back at the hotel to discuss tomorrow's schedule." We responded vaguely and briefly, neither confirming our location nor agreeing to her demands. It felt like a small but significant rebellion. On our final evening in Dubai, we returned to the hotel to find Melissa and Jason waiting in the lobby, both looking annoyed. "Where have you two been?" Melissa demanded. "We have been trying to coordinate with you for 2 days." "Exploring," Dad replied simply. "Seeing the real Dubai." Jason checked his watch ostentatiously. "Well, we need to discuss tomorrow's departure. I have arranged for a private transfer to the airport, but we will need to leave earlier than scheduled to accommodate a breakfast meeting." Dad squared his shoulders, a gesture so subtle I might have missed it had I not been watching him closely. "No," he said firmly. "No what?" Melissa asked, clearly taken aback. "No, we will not be changing our departure plans. Lauren arranged everything perfectly, and we will be sticking to her schedule." "But Dad," Melissa protested, "this is an important connection for Jason. Surely you understand the value of business relationships." "What I understand," Dad said, his voice quiet but unyielding, "is that this entire trip was a gift from your sister. A gift she spent 2 years saving for. A gift you have repeatedly disrespected and co-opted for your own purposes. Melissa's mouth opened and closed, no sound emerging. Jason stepped forward, attempting to salvage the situation. Frank, I think you are misinterpreting our intentions. We have simply been trying to maximize the value of this journey for everyone. My name is Mr. Williams to you, Dad replied coldly. And no, I understand your intentions perfectly well. You have been using my retirement celebration as a networking opportunity with no regard for the purpose of this trip or the person who made it possible. Melissa found her voice anger replacing shock. So now we are the villains. For trying to make useful connections while on a vacation we did not even ask for. That is exactly the point, I interjected. You did not ask for it. It was a gift you have shown zero appreciation for. Oh, here we go again about how much money you spent. Melissa rolled her eyes dramatically. We get it. You have a great job and lots of money to throw around. This was never about the money, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. It was about giving Dad something special after everything he has done for us. Something he always wanted, but never allowed himself to have because he was too busy taking care of us. Well, aren't you just the perfect daughter, Melissa sneered, making the rest of us look bad with your grand gestures. Dad held up his hand, silencing further argument. Enough. Lauren, thank you for an incredible trip. These past few days exploring with you have been some of the best of my life. Melissa and Jason, you are adults and free to spend your time as you choose, but do not expect us to change our plans to accommodate your networking anymore. With that, he turned and walked toward the elevators, leaving Melissa standing open-mouthed in the lobby. I followed him, feeling a mixture of shock and pride at his unexpected firmness. That night, Dad and I had our final Dubai dinner at a simple restaurant overlooking the creek, watching traditional boats glide past as the city lights reflected on the water. We discussed everything and nothing, savoring each moment of connection. I wish Mom could have seen this, I said softly as we finished our meal. She sees it through you, Dad replied, touching the new watch on his wrist. Time doesn't really end, Lauren. It just flows differently. The love remains. The flight home the following day was subdued. Melissa and Jason sat in a different section of the business class cabin, maintaining a frosty distance. Dad and I shared a row, flipping through photos and already reminiscing about our adventures. What will you remember most about Dubai? I asked him as we began our descent toward home. He thought for a moment, gazing out the window. Not the tallest building or the fanciest hotel, he finally said. I will remember that moment on the yacht when you gave me this watch and we decided to be true to ourselves. That was worth more than all the luxury in the world. Returning to normal life after Dubai proved challenging in unexpected ways. The physical jet lag faded within days, but the emotional aftermath lingered much longer. Melissa and Jason departed the airport without saying goodbye, and a strange silence fell between our previously strained but functioning family units. Weeks passed without the usual obligatory Sunday calls or holiday planning discussions. It was as if we had all silently agreed to a period of separation. I threw myself back into work, finding comfort in the familiar patterns of coding and project management. Friends noticed something had changed, commenting on a new assertiveness in my demeanor. You seem different, Rachel observed over coffee 1 month after my return. More confident somehow. I finally realized something in Dubai, I explained. I have spent my whole life trying to compensate for Melissa's behavior, trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone happy at my own expense, and I am done with that. Dad, meanwhile, embraced retirement with unexpected vigor. He completed the long-abandoned canoe project, joined a hiking club, and began volunteering teaching engineering concepts to middle school students. During our weekly dinners, he seemed more animated and present than I had seen him in years. I keep thinking about what you said on the yacht, he told me one evening as we washed dishes together, about how I deserved that perfect retirement celebration. You know, for years I did not think I deserved much of anything. After your mom died, I felt like I was just going through the motions, doing what had to be done. And now, I prompted gently, now I think maybe I do deserve good things. Maybe we both do. 3 months after our return, I began seeing a therapist to process the complex emotions surrounding my relationship with Melissa. Dr. Rivera helped me understand the dynamics that had shaped our family, particularly after Mom's death. Your family developed specific roles in response to trauma, she explained during one session. You became the fixer, the caretaker. Melissa became the taker, and your father became the avoider, unable to confront the unhealthy patterns forming under his roof. "So what do I do now?" I asked. "You set boundaries. You allow yourself to feel anger and disappointment without guilt. And you recognize that you cannot change Melissa. You can only change how you respond to her." Those boundaries were tested 4 months after Dubai, when Melissa unexpectedly appeared at my apartment on a rainy Sunday afternoon. She looked different, subdued, without her usual polished perfection. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Over tea at my kitchen table, she shared news that explained her unannounced visit. "Jason and I broke up," she said, turning her mug slowly in her hands. "Turns out all those business connections in Dubai included a woman he had been seeing on the side." "I am sorry," I said, surprised to find I genuinely meant it. "No, you are not." She gave a bitter laugh. "And you shouldn't be. He was awful to you on that trip. So was I." The admission hung in the air between us, neither a full apology nor a request for forgiveness, but an acknowledgement nonetheless. "Why are you here, Melissa?" I finally asked. She looked up, her expression vulnerable, in a way I had not seen since we were children. "I do not really know. Maybe because when everything fell apart, I realized you and Dad are the only constants in my life, and I have treated you both terribly." "Yes, you have," I agreed, refusing to soften the truth. "I always resented you," she continued. "After Mom died, Dad clearly preferred you. You were easier to love, less demanding, more like him." "He didn't prefer me," I corrected her. "He just found me less exhausting because I wasn't constantly pushing boundaries and creating drama." Melissa nodded slowly. "I see that now. Watching Jason manipulate people made me recognize some things about myself that I'm not proud of." We talked for hours that afternoon, not solving everything, but beginning a conversation that had been decades overdue. When she left, promising to call Dad the next day, I felt a cautious optimism that perhaps something was shifting. 1 year after our Dubai trip, Dad suggested a family dinner at his house. I arrived to find Melissa already there, helping set the table, an unprecedented sight. "I made Mom's lasagna recipe," Dad announced proudly, "or at least my best attempt at it." Over slightly overcooked pasta and garlic bread, we shared updates on our lives. Melissa had started therapy too, was considering a career change, and had recently volunteered at a cancer support center, her first acknowledgement of the trauma that had shaped our family. "I found this while cleaning out some boxes," Dad said after dinner, placing an old photo album on the table. Inside were pictures from before Mom's illness, the 4 of us at Beach's birthday parties, ordinary moments of a once-intact family. "We were happy once," Melissa observed, touching a photo of herself at age 10 sitting on Mom's lap. "We can be happy again," Dad replied, differently but genuinely. Looking at my family around that table, I realized that the true gift of the Dubai trip had not been the luxury experiences or exotic locale. The real value had been the painful but necessary dismantling of the false harmony we had maintained for years, creating space for a more authentic, if imperfect, relationship. The $28,000 I spent had bought something priceless: truth. Truth about who we were as individuals and as a family. Truth about what we needed from each other and what we could realistically expect. I still keep a photo from Dubai on my desk at work. Not one of the glamorous shots in front of the Burj Khalifa or the desert sunset, but a simple image of Dad and me on the yacht deck, his new watch visible on his wrist, both of us smiling with a genuineness that cannot be faked. Sometimes when work becomes stressful, I look at that photo and remember what I learned in Dubai, that the most valuable gift we can give those we love is not purchased with money, but with courage. The courage to see people as they truly are, to set healthy boundaries, and to stand firmly in our own worth. If you have ever found yourself bending until you break to keep others happy, or giving until you are empty just to feel valued, I hope my story reminds you that you deserve more. You deserve reciprocity, respect, and recognition. Have you ever planned something special for a loved one only to have it go sideways, or dealt with family members who consistently take advantage of your generosity? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more authentic stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the strongest act of love is simply holding your ground.